It's something.
Well, should we get into Only Chasing Shoot, Pap?
Welcome to the 2 Decades Too Late podcast, everyone. I am Brad, hanging out with Josh.
What's up?
This is the podcast where we review albums, mostly metal for whatever it's worth, that are turning 20 years old. We give them a rating 1 through 5 each on 4 different parameters with a total of 20 points per person and up to 40 points for the both of us as an overall rating. And maybe I'll remember to even tell you what those are when we're done. It's possible.
I doubt it.
It's possible. Unlikely.
I wouldn't
possible.
do it. Don't do it.
No, I usually don't, so it's fine. So this week, for the second time, technically, you don't need to know about that. I don't know, maybe we'll, if enough people ever listen to this,
it's gonna come up, because I was just thinking, like, this is definitely gonna bias what I say.
Yeah. But yeah, we are doing Underoath, They're Only Chasing Safety. So, yeah, what do you got, Josh? What are we talking about?
Yeah. First and foremost, they're a Christian band, which matters a whole lot. No.
Yep.
It does.
It matters a little.
It does. It comes up. We're gonna try and maybe not focus on it so hard, but
right.
It's definitely a thing.
Yeah, but not too much.
No. So Underoath, they're from Tampa, Florida. So they're kind of in that Tampa, Florida hardcore scene.
Yeah.
Shai Hulud, also from Florida?
No. Indiana originally, then New York, I believe, or Pennsylvania, one of those.
Damn. Well, other bands are from Florida.
Now I have to know.
But
no, you're right. Formed in Pompano Beach, Florida. You nailed it. But based in New York. Okay.
That's all fair.
All right.
Yeah. But Underoath, active for 7 years at this point. Formed in 1997.
Pretty good.
3 prior releases at this point, which is a little interesting for a lot of the bands that we've reviewed. Acts of Depression in 99, Cries of the Past in 2000, and The Changing of Times in 2002. So they had a pretty nice cadence there.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
This album in
really
particular,
other than...
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, other than Cradle, that might be...
That might be.
Band with the most albums that we've done. Anyway, sorry.
It's Pig Destroyer? Did they have...
They had a couple.
And Converge. Converge definitely had a couple.
Converge, yeah, they had a couple too. Yes. Yeah, that's fair.
But this one released June 15th, 2004. The genres are screamo, post-hardcore, emo, and melodic hardcore. Those seem to be like basically two genres in my mind, because 2 of them have emo in the name and 2 of them have hardcore. I know somebody will beat me up for saying that if I give them my full address, which I will not do.
No, I mean, post-hardcore covers enough ground where I don't even know why the melodic hardcore part's necessary, but so no, I totally agree with you. And also, I forget that every release up until then had the Maylene and the Sons of Disaster guy as the vocalist.
Oh, yeah.
This was the first album that didn't have him, which everybody wins. Everybody wins. I know you don't like Maylene, but for those who do, you got that, and he frankly was better at that than he was at being in a screamo band. And the dude who joined, Spencer Chamberlain, is infinitely better than Dallas Taylor at that stuff. So good job, everybody. Choices were made.
Yeah. Do you want to run through the rest of the cast of characters for this album?
You know what? I really do. That's what am I trying? I was trying to think of a thing, and then I can't get there. Like, you know what? That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Oh, when Brian tells the one dude from like the Blondie cartoon to go home and blank, 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 which I don't think I've ever heard that unedited, which makes it really funny.
That is funny.
You know what, Brian? That's exactly what I'm going to do. And then they go to the comics section the next day and he goes, oh my God, today's Blondie is dark. It's
sweet.
Anyway, so yeah, on lead vocals or unclean vocals, we have Spencer Chamberlain, Timothy McTagg. What's your McTagoo?
McChicken.
Lead guitar, James Smith. Those are stark opposites. Rhythm guitar, Grant Brandel, bass guitar, Christopher Dudley. That's an awesome name. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's an awesome name. Keyboard, synthesizers, and samplers, which I didn't hear a whole lot of that on this album. Now that I'm misremembering now because it's been a minute.
There was a little bit, especially with the little interlude song, the Blue Note.
That's true. That's a good point. And then Aaron Gillespie on drums and clean vocals, famously. Say like he was kind of their bread and butter for the most part back then. Everyone loved that guy. Then he got a terrible neck tattoo.
Ugh. Don't get a terrible
I like
neck
tattoos. No, but if you're going to get one, mostly if you're going to get one and you're in this world and you're this famous in this world, I bet any tattoo artist would be happy to do a neck tat on you because that is just like constant marketing.
Yeah.
And instead, it seems like he paid someone $75 and it's bad.
19 with a neck tat.
Yeah. Sick. Great song.
So Underoath, pretty big deal at the time, right?
I would say so, yeah. And I would say it was this album was because they were on the album prior to this, I know was the first time we heard them, some song where they're in like a parking lot and it's kind of gross. It was on like a solid state sampler back in the day, as were most of the things that we heard that weren't metal or hardcore and were some subgenre of all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, God, I love those things. But yeah, I would say this was the album with the song that made them blow the fuck up in the circumstances of the musical world at that time. Was kind of ripe for this sort of band doing something like this well. So yeah.
Who else have we talked about so far that's kind of along these lines? Would you put Taking Back Sunday or My Charitable Reputation?
Oh my God. That was good. That was a good one. Yeah, I think if you were into any of these bands in 2004, you probably wouldn't.
That's fair.
From a quote unquote outsider perspective who was not into this sort of thing back then, I tend to, because they all got so big at the same time. And they all, well, not My Chemical Romance, honestly, they were bigger than the other two. I would say they got bigger than the other two with like what was it, Black Parade or whatever it is.
That for sure.
Ginormous. But yeah, I mean, they were enough hardcore where they were touring with bands like Killswitch Engage and stuff too, which just got them that much bigger and more exposure. So
right.
Yeah, I would say this was like kind of the one. I know we kind of talked about this last time. Not that, I guess that matters, but
the first time.
Yeah, true. I do think I would call this definitively their last Screamo album. I don't.
Yeah.
When I was done listening to this, I listened to every album after, literally throughout an entire day. And they're all really good. And I would not consider a single one of them Screamo at all. So, kind of interesting that they got so big off of something like this, and then seemingly was just a post-hardcore band from then on out.
That is interesting. I wonder if that's due. Wonder what that's due to. I wonder if that's like influenced by Spencer Chamberlain's direction in the band, or if it's just like changing with the times and the surroundings. Or
if I were to guess, I would say they heard what Norma Jean did after Bless the Martyr, and Chamberlain took vocal lessons with what's her name, Melissa Croft or something. I don't
the Zen of Screaming guru.
Yeah. He was one of the people that became one of her like outspoken supporters, like Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die and Corey Taylor from Slipknot. And his vocals on the very next album after this are so much better, but he's got a mid scream that he only does once on this album, if I remember correctly. But he just sounds so much more like just ferocious. It's great.
It's probably due in large part to the fact that both singers damaged their vocals on this album.
Yep, that'll do it. And that's when we talk about this, or we have a few times, it's just you can tell in hindsight, like where it's like, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Like I can hear that you shouldn't do that. But yeah, so it's probably a combination of things. I mean, I say they leaned more on the scream of the screamo part than the emo of the screamo part. Like there is a lot of singing, but they did a lot of, but they're very melodic songs and not really one heavy song. Like as far as my definition of what I consider like really heavy. I mean, I forget what the track is now, but it's super good. Well, I guess, we might as well get into it, but what the hell?
We should get into it.
I don't feel very receptive today. Yeah. Track 8, that's very heavy. You get into some pretty chaotic parts with dissonant chords and stuff. It's sick. Not that I want them to do that all the time. I like the rest of this album because it just sounds like them. Like I don't dislike how they sounded at the same time. So
this album kind of did seem like a mixed bag of influences on full display. Mm-hmm. In a way that wasn't copycatty, but like this is one of the first albums I think we've reviewed where you could really start to feel a lot of influences being worn like on somebody's sleeve, as opposed to having to try and hide them and be like, oh no, we don't even listen to them.
Yeah, that or trying to show them too hard to try to go any specific direction on purpose. It really does sound to me, this is that whole Glassjaw dude talking about putting your inspirations in a blender. I think this is very much a good showing of that. And honestly, this is what I like, the heavier end of Screamo, the two bands. When I wouldn't have thought of them because I never listened to this album until we started doing this. But like, this is what I feel like everyone else was doing, and I just didn't realize it. But like, this whole combination of things with a lot of the screaming, like you don't sound like Thursday, but you don't sound like Norma Jean. You sound somewhere in the middle, and it's pretty rad. I liked it a lot. Starts off really strong too with young and aspiring. Excuse me. That is a great way to showcase what your album's gonna sound like right from the start. Very well done.
Starts off very strong. The singing is not nearly as annoying as I feared it might be for what my perception of this album was back in the day. I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate this. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in a bag at the back of the car. I always put gross stuff in a bag.
It's pretty good. But no, it's fine.
Yeah, it's super good. Fine. Apropos of that comment though, like the album does kind of have a dark emotional tone to it, and you pick that up right off the get-go.
Yeah. I'm also convinced, by the way, we actually didn't talk about this, I don't think, before, but there are parts on this where I kept thinking they were influenced by Dance Gavin Dance. But Dance Gavin Dance did not even start as a band until 2005. So it's funny because honestly, by the end of it, I'm convinced that this had to be one of the building blocks that made it so that band could have a lot of the sounds that they ended up with. A lot of those like hammer on, pull off, really high notes, things over like simple melodies, that sort of thing that they do constantly. There's a lot of that on here. It's really sick. Yeah.
I am the biggest fan of
Yep.
Gavin Dance that I know. And that is to say that I like Dance Gavin Dance.
Yeah, you're probably the you might be the only Dance Gavin
Yeah,
Dance
that's
fan I know.
kind
I
of
like Dance Gavin Dance, but you only generally when you tell me to listen to something, and then
right.
I'm like, oh, that is good. But yeah, the first call out on that was Down Set Go track 7. Um, there's like a part at like the second half of the song is so rad because it basically sounds like Deftones for a minute and then goes into a part that sounds like Dance Gavin Dance. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
a cool combination of shit that I didn't know I wanted to hear, but now I'm very happy that I did.
I like the up tempo of that particular song. It really there's
Yeah.
actually there's kind of a couple tone shifts, throughout the album that keep it pretty interesting. Even just going from the first song to the second, A Boy Brushed Red, Living in Black and White. I hate having to say all these song titles, by the way. It starts off kind of like Jimmy World vibe almost.
Yeah. Yep.
There's some extra sounds and textures going on in there. So, maybe that's where the noise guy, Milk Dudley, keyboards, synthesizers, and samplers. Christopher Dudley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they call him Milk.
Milk.
Shut up,
Dudley.
Milk.
Sucks. Oh, it sucks so bad. Man. No, good call out though. That's a great song. I like that they kind of do a reverse of it's like harshes going into cleans, going into harshes, going into like cleans rather than generally is the reverse. I
Right.
like that how they did that. Or they start with cleans, then go to harsh vocals, excuse me. So the exact opposite of what I just said. But normally it's bands like this like to lead with harsh vocals and it makes the clean stand out. They did the opposite on that. And it's
Right.
pretty good. Track 3, The Impact of Reason, pretty heavy. Weird vocal patterns.
Yeah.
On that. Very odd. Like when he says crack a smile just for the sake of it, it's weird. Like he says it's so weird. I don't. It stuck out enough to where I wrote down the lyric just so if anyone's listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. I was like, I would never in a million years chose the pattern that he chose there, but
I must have picked up
like
something similar as you because I had for this song like reminds me of Amorosa with Johnny Craig. So not the Dance Gavin Dance vibe, but maybe it's the Johnny Craig vibe.
Maybe, yeah, but I don't like giving him that kind of credit.
Yeah, that's fair. He's still not a very good person. It seems like
he's a terrible person. Incredibly talented, but what a piece of shit.
Incredibly talented singer, but makes a lot of bad choices.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe these guys could talk to him and maybe he could listen to song 10 and change his ways.
We'll get there, man. We'll get there. Oh, God.
Reinventing Your Exit's next, though, and that's the song that, like,
Yep, that's the one.
Even if
that's
you
the one you've heard
don't know that you know it, you're like, oh, that's what this is.
Yep.
You couldn't not hear that song. Same with, actually, It's Dangerous Business, Walking Out Your Front Door. Like, those are the two that you're going to know if you were alive in 2004 at all.
Yeah, but 100% Reinventing Your Exit. I mean, that was on... That didn't even have to wait to be on... What was the Fuse thing that played heavier stuff? Oh, man. Why can't I think of it? It'll come to me. But that was just on all the time. The music video was on constantly. So yeah, but yeah, not a lot to say about that. It's still really good. The chorus is catchy as fuck. It's insane. Be stuck in your brain. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't really. What are you gonna say? It's the song, but. The blue note instrumental in jazz, the blue note is a note that, for expressive purposes, is sung or played at a slightly different pitch from standard. I don't know why that's there.
Thank you.
I don't think it...
Webster.
Well, because I didn't have anything else to say about it except why did we... like put kind of an interlude after the catchiest song on the album, like
The
that's when you need it.
song. Yeah.
Like I don't you need it after like maybe I don't feel very receptive today, which is heavy as shit. Yeah. And then you go into I'm Content Without Losing, track 9, and it starts with clean vocals, and they would lead really well into each other to have a little bit of a break between those, I feel.
Yeah, they broke up the two catchiest songs on the album.
It's odd. It's an odd structural choice to make. I don't really get it. It's not bad. It's 51 seconds. Who cares, I guess, but I just feel like whoever the producer was kind of failed them slightly there.
The producer was actually James Paul Wisner, who they had recorded with previously, didn't want to for this album, but hilarity ensued and schedules and blah, blah, blah. He ended up being the guy. And there will be more to say on that later.
Oh, nice. Oh, Uranium. Uranium was the Fuse music video show that played heavier music videos.
Uranium.
That's right. I am anium.
Yeah. Sick.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, so I will say that in stark opposition to Taking Back Sunday, where every song sounded exactly the same, that's not the case here. Though, I will say if you've made it to track 5, where they put a weirdly placed 51-second instrumental, if you like it, you're gonna like the rest. Right. I mean, no way around it. If you don't, you're not gonna like the rest, unless you're being one of those douchebags like I was when I was in 2004 saying it's not heavy enough. Then maybe you'll like I Don't Feel Very Receptive Today. Yeah. But otherwise, I think if you like the first half of the album, I see no reason that you wouldn't like the back half.
I kind of think the back half is heavier. Like I had a note on track 9, I'm Content With Losing. Like it sucked me. I had kind of zoned out after track 8 somehow, but like 9 kind of just starts with a punch in the throat. There's a lot of vocal layers going on. Like,
yeah. And it's got another Dance Gavin Dance part. I called it out on that one as well, track 9.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the best gifts a celebrity has ever given the world.
Absolutely.
Is that skit.
Thank you, Emma Stone.
I will say too, track 9, if you also thought the constant barrage of a stupid thing on Taking Back Sunday where they kept having to Gilmore Girl vocal all over the place for 45 minutes or whatever it is, at the end of track 9 they do it, and it's great on this.
It is album. Great. Yeah, absolutely. It's so really good. Well done.
Yep, and I will say too, I don't think Chamberlain's clean vocals are the greatest on this. They get way better on subsequent albums. He got way better at that. But I almost like that they're not very good, and I can clearly tell when one's doing it and when the other's doing it, and they don't do it often. I mean, usually they're ping-ponging between harsh and clean, right. Clean being the drummer. But when the vocalist does some cleans here and there, it's really cool. It's an interesting contrast instead of we found this new toy, so let's play with it until it's broken, sort of thing. So not track 9, I'm Content With Losing is a very good showing of that. And
then I thought that went really well into track 10. I like the way that they slow it down to close. And I wanted to read the lyrics. I never did, but you did.
I sure did, Josh. Sure did, Josh. Back to you. The lyrics on this album are very good. I am very sensitive to Christian things because I think religion is a plague on man. But they didn't do that for 9 tracks. For 9 tracks, they didn't do that. And again, suck a dick, Taking Back Sunday. That's how to write metaphorical lyrics that are smart, emotional, deep. They have nuance, and you could interpret them in different ways. I think the lyrics on this album are very good and very well done. Except for track 10. I think track 10's lyrics are fucking terrible and condescending, and it basically, just like Dare did for children, making them think that addiction is a weakness rather than a disease, track 10 on this album makes you think that being non-Christian makes you weak rather than smart. Maybe I'm not saying all people who are Christian aren't smart, but I'm saying sometimes you cannot be Christian because you're smart rather than just weak and needing it to be a good person. And track 10 makes it seem like the only way to achieve that is through Christianity and belief.
In
so
summary,
that bothers me a lot.
Addiction is cool.
Yeah.
That's not the song. But like, I didn't even know that they were a Christian band or even identified as such. And I think, like a lot of Christian bands from that time period to now have kind of like reevaluated what that means in the space of their music at the very least. So I was kind of surprised to find out that like the lyrics really hit, because we listened to August Burns Red, but even they've occasionally got some ones that they're just pretty forward about their faith, but they're not condescending about their faith.
Exactly. Like, you could, if that's your faith, you should be proud of that, and not let anyone tell you not to be that way, but just don't tell me to also be that way. That's where I have a problem.
Right.
That's like the original Norma Jean singer at shows was really obnoxious about that sort of thing. And he would go on that 45-minute interlude ramble about how you have to accept Jesus into your heart. But no, and they're not Christian now. They're actually completely anti it. So go figure, I guess, that Underoath, because their last album, it's very against that. So, which is awesome for me. And I don't mind which way you land on that. Just don't try to tell me that the way I feel is wrong, and I won't tell you the way you feel is wrong.
Oh.
And we'll all be fine.
Yeah. So this is actually a relatively
track 10.
Yeah. So for 9/10 of the album, you're going to be just golden.
I had no problems. And honestly, I should have turned them off more quickly than I did. But
that's actually an A. Yeah, that's a 90 out of 100. So
hell yeah. I mean, it's a great album, everyone. Like, it's really good.
Short.
Again, I don't know how
35, 36 minutes.
Yeah, you get through it pretty quick. The pace is good. I do wish there was like a song that maybe had a more of a punk like speed, because you could tell they had that influence in there, and we never got that like skank beat sort of driven song, which, I mean, it's not a big deal, and it was varied enough to keep it interesting, but I always did kind of like expect it a little bit, and I never quite got it. But that's, very, very small critique at the end of the day. Though I don't know, out of like the 30 total people that listen to this podcast, if you didn't hear this album, it'd almost be odd, or that at least close to it. I don't know. I had a blast listening to it though.
So I read a couple of reviews, and like, again, it's one of those situations where the user reviews far outweigh and like outrank the actual reviewer reviews. So AllMusic gave it a 2.5 out of 5 for no real reason. If you read the review, it's actually pretty glowing, or at the very least, not subpar. Lamb Goat as well, 2.5 out of 5. User review was 3.6 out of 5. So I think both review sites kind of downgraded it for the Christian aspects, but maybe more so because they were a Christian band and kind of fell into that as a genre or a category, not necessarily. But again, there was a lot of hype around like, new singer, that kind of aspect to it. But
I will say, if I was a reviewer in 2004, would I have Christian labeled music fatigue? I might. You know what I mean? I might. 2003 leading into 2004 was really heavy on that.
That's true.
And so I might get to the, like, even though for me, and maybe you as well, this was like kind of a refreshing album to listen to, because I didn't listen to it at the time. I don't have any current biases that I may have had in 2004. But I do think that if I was professionally reviewing albums at that time, I'd be like, do we really have to listen to another Christian album?
That's fair.
Maybe that would have a little bit, but I don't know. We try to be objective. We don't even have to be. There's no reason for us to be objective.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not at all, but like we do try. Even though I hate the lyrics on track 10, I don't really hold it against it that much. I mean, it comes up, I think, in one of our things, but like I would never tell you not to listen to it because of their faith.
No,
like,
it's
great.
Super good.
And they don't wear it on their sleeve, really. It's good.
The Lamb Goat review kind of refers to them as being like a weaker version of some of the other bands in the space. But now that we're having this conversation, I think they probably meant that more in like the Christian metal band or Christian music band, more so than the genre that they would probably otherwise be associated with. Because you're right, like if you do compare them to like an August Burns Red or an As I Lay Dying, like this is kind of musically a weaker version of those two bands. But to compare them to the contemporaries like of a similar genre, like I think they definitely stand on their own compared to like The Used.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call this weaker than the As I Lay Dying album in 2003, Frail Words Collapse. I wouldn't even call that weaker. It's just different, but I
not
honestly,
as heavy
I would
as far as weaker.
No, for sure. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I was gonna say if you took the opposite approach and you were super into Christian post-hardcore, hardcore, metalcore, what have you, at the time, you might be disappointed that they didn't wear it on their sleeves enough. You know what I mean? Like,
true.
That could be a thing too, I guess, conversely, but that's interesting. Out of the user reviews on Lamb Goat, under, over, how many number of racial slurs? Like, I'll put the over-under at 39. I think it was...
I didn't read them specifically because incels are a thing. So
I'm just kidding. Lamb Goat got worse. I don't think in 2004 they were quite as bad. So
that's good.
Yeah, what a cesspool. Great reviews though. Lamb Goat does a very good job from the people that they, hired or whatever it is to do reviews. They do a good job. But boy, that community is woof.
Yeah, we just look at the number.
You're damn right we do. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, though? If we're going to talk about some reviews.
Let's talk about some reviews! The meat doll.
Headphones to the meat.
Headphones to the meat doll.
Gonna get that meat.
Beef.
God, I don't like the word beef. I don't know why, but it's awful.
Okay.
Beef.
On a scale from 1 to 5, the word beef. What do you give it, Brad?
I gotta tell you, Josh, I give the word beef a 1 out of 5 stars.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know.
Who invited Gus Johnson, everybody?
I don't get to do it very often. Now that I have my microphone set up like this, I keep wanting to. Like, I feel like I'm like more of like in a broadcasting situation rather than a weird not doing it right situation.
Right.
Which is what I've been doing for 2 seasons and 10 episodes. Whatever that is total. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, Josh, tell me what you think about the artwork on this here album.
I dig the album artwork a lot. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was pretty interesting. At this point, it's pretty iconic. So, like, if you see this artwork, you know exactly what it's from and what it's for. 100%. Even though there is no text on it. Like, the band's not there. The name of the album's
not there. No worries
for
the rest of your days.
Right. Hakuna Matata. Interestingly, though, the model for the artwork is Julie McCadden, who is the wife of designer Chris McCadden, who was also the lead guitarist for Demon Hunter for a short time.
That's
So
really cool.
in that Christian space, he basically didn't have enough money to hire an actual model, so he just used his
Hey,
wife,
man.
slapped an
Good
oxygen
call.
mask on her, and then there's your album artwork.
Yeah. No, and I like when these worlds like intersect like that. It's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like finding out that the Converge dude did As I Lay Dying's album art and that kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
all sick. Um, I mean, I'm along the same vein. I gave it a 5 actually. I love this album
Damn.
cover. We've talked about it to death, and I will continue to do so, as I am wont to do about literally everything. But I generally prefer an actual piece of, I don't want to say piece of art. I understand that a photograph could be a piece of art, so I'm not trying to like talk down to that sort of thing, but like something actually like painted or drawn or yeah,
Photographed, not digitally
yeah,
produced. Like
yeah, or
nobody
even
photoshopped a gas mask.
Yeah, well, and even photographs are just like they're cool, but like again, I've just always been such a sucker for that whole melodic death metal Scandinavian thing where it all looked like these grandiose paintings of
Well, yeah,
like a
who wouldn't be?
cathedral with a broken bridge. It's so sick. But this is, I don't know what it is about this thing. I love it. I think it's really well done, as far as the photography and how it was edited.
Right.
And I don't know why, but I'm a sucker for an album with no words, or an album cover with no words. I even pulled up images of the actual CD to make sure that there wasn't like an overlay like there was with Blood Has Been Shed that gave it like another thing. And there's not. They just fucking went with that. And I think that's a confident move that doesn't work for everybody, but I think worked here. I don't know what it is. And to your point, I mean, even have never listened to the album, I saw this, I knew what it is. I mean, you don't have to tell me. I didn't have to look that up. As soon as we even picked it, I could picture that album art. So yeah, 5 all day for me. It was great.
Hell yeah. What about the production then versus now?
Production. Honestly, for this type of music, I don't have a lot that I'd want to change about it even now. I don't really need guitars to have that like I throw out the amp 5150 all the time. Not because I know that an album's been recorded on it, but because I think that if you're from that era, that is an amp that was a crushing fucking thing that like the Acacia strain was using. You know what I mean? It's like that brought the fucking heaviness. I don't really want that from this. You know what I mean? Like, I like that their guitar tone was really clean-ish. Even when it was distorted, it wasn't, like, overly so. It let the bass carry all the crunch of it, and I think that's cool. So I honestly don't... Now, nothing they did after this sounds like this, because then they decided, no, I do want a 5150 / whatever crushing guitar tone to kick your skull in, which I love as well. And they don't... Again, I don't think they did a true Screamo record after this, but I listened to some other stuff from now that is maybe closer to this to try to. I almost had such an immediate positive opinion about the production that I was like wanting to prove myself wrong almost.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty good. I think it's balanced. I think the kick and the bass are at the perfect. They blend really, really well. They don't muddy each other out. They're in the same space, but they carry themselves individually while carrying each other. Maybe a little more low end in the mix, but it's not like, August Burns Red Messengers where you just want to like pour bleach down your ears when you're done because it sounds So no, I like it, and I don't have a lot to detract. I gave it a 4 only because we kind of have this thing going, you and I, where it's like, is this production really the equivalent? And maybe we shouldn't think this way because the genres are so different, but I think of like Dimmu Borgir, Dead Cold Armageddon, and I'm like, that's a fucking masterclass in production.
It is.
And again, they're not comparable. They're totally different, and I want different things from the different genres, but I won't give it a 5 just because I feel like that's a big wall to push through, and we've set a pretty high bar for that at this point. Maybe. Right. I don't know. If you know anything about production, you're probably like, you guys are fucking morons, and that's not
probably
true.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, I gave it a 4. What about you?
Sick. I was in an unfortunate circumstance where I couldn't listen to it like as an album, so I didn't get a very good sense. There were some tracks that were like louder than others, and some that like sounded like you had put a tape recorder up to the radio, like back in the day when you were making a mixtape. So the quality wasn't super great. I got a general feel for the album, but I gave it a 3. And looking into some of the production, I think maybe there were maybe some issues with, you know, just the recording process and the mixing and mastering. Like, I think the band probably, like I said, they wanted to work with somebody else, but due to schedules and money, I think they had to go with this James Paul Wisner guy that they had recorded with before. They had to like live in his apartment while they were recording it and pay him rent. His next door neighbor was a nurse who like worked the night shift, so they could only record at certain times. It was just kind of an overall weird situation, and I think maybe that bled through a little bit into the overall end product.
Interesting.
So I landed on a 3 just because it was kind of, you know, middle of the road. Like you said, there's a lot of good things happening sonically, and there is some different elements, like different layers and textures going on that you can hear, you can pick up on. So I don't want to get anything too bad, because it's not bad, but I also couldn't rate it very high because objectively I didn't have the information to do so.
That's fair. Do you know who they wanted to record with? And there's a specific reason I'm asking, but
I don't recall if I read.
Because their next album was with Adam D.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And it sounds incredible, even still. Like, in regards to myself, is my favorite Underoath song of all time. It was the Ryan Neff and I found that, and we were like, holy shit, this sounds like almost like a cooler Norma Jean for a second. Or at least a well-produced Norma Jean. Also, go listen to In Regards to Myself if you haven't, whoever's listening to this. It's, well, unless you liked the album we're talking about really well, because it doesn't sound like that at all. But it's incredible. So that's funny. I just wondered if maybe, honestly, in 2004, if you were kind of in this this orbit, you were probably wanting to record with Mr. Dukowitz over there, if I'm saying that right. Anyway, impact at the time.
Adam Droopy Tits. Impact at the time. Nailed it. Impact at the time, I gave it a 3 because it was definitely around. You couldn't not be impacted by it one way or the other. I wouldn't say I was necessarily like super positively impacted by it, but there's enough bits in there that we could kind of like pick up on and move forward with.
Yeah.
So like they snuck in. There were so many people listening to this type of music, and like a lot of people we played shows with were playing this type of music. Half the people that were there to see us were also there to see the other bands. So there was a lot of blending, but they didn't do a whole lot for me personally, and I sure didn't go back and, you know, seek them out at the time, or was necessarily a huge fan other than those 2 songs that I couldn't not hear. So I landed on a 3.
No, that's a good call. I have almost nothing to add to that, and I also gave it a 3 for the same reasons. I mean, everyone, like in She's a Nightmare, Brad Comer and Ryan Neff were both super into this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, so like every band I was in, even Behold Eternity, I mean, half the band was into this sort of thing, including Ryan Neff again. But like, so it's like I couldn't. Maybe that didn't influence the songwriting process per se, but even though I wasn't listening to it, was it influencing me in some way, shape, or form? It was impossible for it not to.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and say, for how I enjoyed it today, I gave it a 5 because I did not read the lyrics to song 10. And if you don't do that, you're going to be just fine.
Unless you're into that sort of thing, which is fine.
It is fine. I did subsequently go back and read them, and it does detract a little bit because it just feels a little icky. And I was like, oh,
It's
man.
just like the line, "Hey, unfaithful, I will teach you to be stronger."
Don't teach me shit.
I am unfaithful, and I'm strong as fuck, so...
Give me a stronger.
Calm down.
And I'll stronger for a day. I don't want to be taught to stronger.
Yeah, I don't really get that.
That's dumb. Super dumb.
Yeah, super dumb.
But overall, the album is a blast to listen to. Like,
very
throw
good.
it on. You're going to have a good time. It's
very, very good.
Upbeat, but dark. Like, there's a lot of back and forth with the different vocal styles. The musicianship is really pretty solid. So, like, there's a lot to like about the album. It's a good time.
Way more to like than not. So I couldn't give it a 5, despite the fact that, did I enjoy it at a 5? Yeah. But once I read the lyrics to track 10, it pissed me off down a point to a 4.
That's super fair.
Okay, so we have a score from Josh at a 15.
Boom.
My score at a 16.
Boom.
And a total score to 31, man. Scored pretty well.
That's pretty solid.
And I didn't change my scores from the other night when I was just a raging piece of garbage. So, so even with all that going on, I still felt pretty positive about the album overall. What was your favorite song on the album?
I mean, it's well, I was gonna say, if it's not the one, then I'm gonna go with track 10. It was just like so different, and I liked what was going on with the juxtaposition of the lyrics and the musical tone kind of not jiving. Like I just really thought it was a great way to close out the album. It was a super good song.
You know what sucks? I actually agree with you, and if it weren't for the lyrics, it would have been my favorite too.
Yeah,
like it's such a good song.
Yeah.
Like sonically, musically, everything about it is really good. It's just, I will say, I think the last time we did this, I don't feel very receptive today. I do hope you listen to that from at least our perspective. We're into the heavier side of things.
Yeah.
It's a rager. I mean, I don't even think there are clean vocals in it. There's a straight up dissonant chord Norma Jean part. But because of the Deftones into a Dance Gavin Dance part, I am going to go with Down, Set, Go.
Hell yeah.
As my favorite. Hopefully I didn't already update the playlist. I don't think that I did.
You can always update it again.
Yep. I'll change it because I have the power to do that. All right, sick. Well, I gave the scores. That's good.
Check.
It sucks how much I screw that up. I have not added it to the playlist. By the way, we do have a playlist, TDTL-favorite songs on Spotify. I'll update that every week with Josh and I's favorite songs from each album that we are reviewing. It gets more and more interesting every week. I don't think that's going to change because we're going to be doing we get the jam session next week.
Jam.
And so that'll be 10 songs
potentially
added to the playlist. Yeah. If we, well, never mind. I won't ruin the content. I have many things to say, but and we've got a couple interesting ones coming up, like the Jay-Z Linkin Park collaboration.
Collision Course.
That'll make the playlist even more varied, which is cool. And we do that, then Behemoth.
Hell yeah,
I believe. Yeah. Hell yeah. And then we got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of good albums this year, but what else? I know we have some other house cleaning.
The Instagram. Things, right? Check out the Instagram.
Yep. Check us out on Instagram at TDTL_podcast, where I post dumb things.
Like Cradle of Firth. It's the funniest.
We're never going to top it. No one cares.
Nope. Not a bit.
One day, there will be... You know what'll suck? If we ever do get bigger than this, which we won't, it's fine. But if we did, all the Cradle of Filth fans would be so butthurt about that.
Yes,
Don't
absolutely.
Joke about Cradle of Filth. Cradle of Firth. Colin Firth's not even in Cradle of Filth.
They're both British, though. Nailed that.
True enough. Hey, Colin Firth listens to Cradle of Filth? I don't.
I hope he does. I assume he does.
Good.
I'll ask. He probably won't answer.
Playlist. We got the Instagram.
Oh yeah, that's about it. I guess with that, you've been Brad. I've been a cat, and we've been 2 decades too late.